Consider the lilies. It sounds like the sort of advice dispensed by a relaxation guru on a meditation CD. Perhaps when Jesus said, consider the lilies, we think he's suggesting a nice walk in the country or picking up a paintbrush and doing a watercolor of a bunch of flowers. That's not really what Jesus is getting at. Let me read Matthew chapter 6 from verse 25. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? And why do you worry about clothes? Consider the lilies. See the lilies of the field. See how they grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? When the Son of God looks at planet Earth, he sees something baffling. He sees birds and flowers who are fulfilling God's will for their lives far better than human beings who are made in God's image. Flowers are being what they are meant to be, while the kings and queens of creation, humanity, live in faithless and paralyzing anxiety. It's so strange. The world's flora and fauna should look up to us and see paragons of virtue, trusting our God and living in harmony with all creation. Instead, we are the biggest unbelievers on the face of the earth. And it's the animal and even the plant kingdom that outstrip us in living rightly before God. It's extremely galling. But according to Jesus, we need to take life lessons from sparrows and grass. But let's think about these two models of faith that Jesus picks out. Flowers of the field are clothed better than Solomon. Birds are cared for by our Heavenly Father. So the flowers are like kings and the birds are children. Who is Jesus? It's interesting. He's the King, the Christ, the true Son of David. He's the ultimate Solomon. And Jesus is the true Son of God, the original child of God, the one who truly entrusts himself to his Heavenly Father. So Jesus is better than the lilies, better than the birds. We are worse than the lilies, worse than the birds. Jesus is better than the lilies, better than the birds. Or rather, the lilies and the birds, they are like Jesus. They try to be. And they point to trust in God. And as they're pointing to trust in God, they're really pointing to Jesus. He is the eternal truster in God, the true Solomon, the true child, the true Son of God. So when Jesus walks around planet Earth, we see the ultimate lesson in carefree living. Does he worry about what he will eat, what he will drink, what he will wear? Never. Instead, he is the bread of life torn apart on the cross to feed us. He sheds his blood like wine to slake our thirst. He is stripped on the cross so that we can be clothed in his righteousness. Jesus doesn't merely refrain from worry about food and drink and clothing. Jesus takes it upon himself to provide for us the true food and drink and clothing which we all need. And on the cross, he proves himself to be an incredible provider. He'd rather go hungry. He'd rather be thirsty. He'd rather go naked than let us lack these same things. He is a provider we can trust. So why worry? We are fed with Jesus' body and his blood. We are clothed by his righteousness, and we are surrounded by a world that proclaims his trustworthiness. Even sparrows know this. Even grass declares it. The Lord can be trusted. The Lord who takes care of the birds, who clothes the flowers. He is a God of extravagant love and devoted care. Consider the birds. Consider the lilies. Consider the cross. Are you not much more valuable than sparrows and flowers? You have been valued with the blood of God's Son. You have been fed and clothed with Christ himself. So don't worry. You have a provider who will never let you down.